In today's episode, we're speaking to Sarah VanHoose. Sarah is a small business and finance coach. She's helping entrepreneurs increase the intentionality with their time, their talent, and money to thrive in a life they call to lead. She owns and operates an online coaching business, Journey to Influence. As a trained Ramsey-preferred Finance Master coach, she makes money stuff simple and easy to understand, going back to the basics. Let's speak to Sarah today and find out how she changed her life by changing her mindset. Let's find out. And remember, if you want to upgrade your money mindset, then click on the link www.millionairefoundations.com and watch my free training. Welcome. This is Gull, your money mindset expert. And today I'm so excited. We're speaking to the amazing, the wonderful Sarah VanHoose. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Sarah. Sarah, everyone's heard your intro. They know how fabulous you are. But please, in your own words, tell everybody what it is that you do.
Yeah, I am a financial coach. So I help people with the daily cash flow side, the behavior side of managing their money on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Fabulous. So talk us through, Sarah, how did you get started with this? How did it all begin for you? How did you come into the world of finance?
I know it's a great story, and it's certainly not something that as a teenager or a child I was like, I can't wait, right, to be a financial coach when I grow up. Nobody says that.
I didn't think I'd be a lawyer. I could have imagined, but money coach, no. It's not something that I would have thought of either.
Exactly, something totally different. Let's see, like the modified version. I was on my husband in this wonderful little island off of Mexico called Isla Mujeres. Beautiful white sandy beaches, clear blue water. And we had talked about, when we were older, maybe we'd buy a spot down here, we'd retire here, spend some of our time here. And as we were getting back on the airplane to head home to the cold, right to the cold, snowy weather of the Pacific Northwest and back to our daughters, I was like, wait a minute. Why do we have to wait to do the things that we really want to do until we are old?
Yeah.
Why do we have to wait until we're retired, right, to do the things that we really want to do? Our daughters at the time were, I think like maybe 8 and 10 or 8 and 11, something around those ages. I was like, what benefit is it for them? Like how great would it be, right, to just add some culture and language and community and just whole different experience to our world if that was the case. And my husband kind of looked at me and asked how many margaritas I had, already. And he's like, well, if you want to really think about that, you can make a plan and we'll talk about it. And I was like, okay, green light, like I'm going to make a plan and we're going to figure something out. To date, like over the past 5 years prior to that, we had spent some time cleaning up our debt and really positioning ourselves in a better place to really have a few more options and be able to dream bigger at that point. And so getting to this place where I was like, well, what could we do? So crafting a little plan on my airplane napkin, like, okay, this is what we could do, in order to move, and we'd rent back our house and figure things out. And I share the plan and he's like, well, I'm going to need some more information. So regular life ensues, when we get back home, regular responsibilities, back to work, back to home life. And I still could not get this like idea out of my gut that something different, was just in store for me, in store for us. And through, several months of kind of trying to figure out what that looked like, I really just wanted to, I was burnt out from my traditional job. I worked in healthcare, healthcare leadership and operations for about 20 years. And I was tired and really kind of aching to do something different. And the idea of taking a sabbatical or leave to go move to an island for a couple of years felt necessary. It felt like I needed it. And what it ultimately came down to, my husband was not actually on board with moving to Mexico, like moving to an island. He wasn't ready to go. But what I realized is that I didn't actually need an island. I needed some level of different work experience. I needed to do something different to be more present with my family, to have more options, to have more freedom. And my love for getting our finances cleaned up and my background and leadership and coaching just kind of paired those things together, and I became a money coach.
Wow. And how, but so that's the actual process for it. In terms of emotionally, how did you get to the mindset part? How did you get to it? Because if you've been in employment for the last 20 years and then working for yourself, yes, it gives the freedom, but oh my God, it comes with the roller coaster ride as well. So how did you go from the employee mindset into being self-employed and having your own company and being responsible for your own finances? Yes, you have the freedom, but also the responsibility.
Sure. That's a great question, and one that people think that entrepreneurship is really fancy, right? Or
Oh no, oh no,
it.
oh my God, it comes with yeah, people just see the glamour side. They don't really see the heartache, the blood, the sweat, the scars,
Yes.
the mistakes you make. Oh my gosh,
Yes,
yes.
it's so true. I think that part of my mindset, and my really like work ethic, I think a lot of it for me came down to, I was bent on making sure that I could make it happen. I was really determined to do something different. I grew up on a farm, on a working ranch,
Right.
as the oldest daughter, and so like there was just things that had to be done because they had to be done regardless. And so I really think I took that mindset into, if you really want to quit your job, and my husband is also an entrepreneur, and he had some kind of nervous feelings about us both being entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
right, versus one being an entrepreneur and one having a steady salary, retirement benefits, all of that kind of piece. So really, when it came down to it, I was determined to figure out how to make it happen, one way or another. So that determination and grit, I think, really served me in that season of building, and the continued season, right, of entrepreneurship.
Okay, so now that's another big question. When as an entrepreneur, he knew what you were going for, he knew what you were going into. So I understand his hesitation, making sure that at least one steady income.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much security in the job, but there's a steady income, and you can always change your jobs. You can always go to another employment. So having one steady income where one is fluctuating, can have the highs are highs and the lows are really lows. How did you sort of sit down as a family and come to that decision? Especially if your partner was against it, because and quite rightly so. I'm not saying that he was wrong. I think he had logically it makes sense. But how did you take the plunge, and how did you convince him or convince yourself that no, this is the right thing for me? Because the reason why I'm asking these specific questions, because a lot of people listening to this podcast would be in a similar boat. There would be people who are thinking about transitioning and have been thinking for some time, but they keep thinking, well, it's too risky, it's not the right time, and it's not the right time. How do you decide now is the right time and convince, make that decision as a family together? And with children involved as well, because that's another excuse I hear. Well, I can't be that selfish because I have kids. Well, yeah, it's part of the process for the kids as well.
I think that there's a lengthy list of reasons why we shouldn't do it, right? We can all find a long list of why we shouldn't.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think a big enough why, right, to want to do something different. So having a passionate, fiery why, I think, was important for me. And then like logistically, like we had to get some things in order. I had to do it for myself, but I also needed to do it to reassure my husband that this was a a progressive direction, and ultimately the benefit for our children. I know you've got kids also, Gull, but our daughters, they're moving into middle school and high school next year, and I really felt called and compelled to, like, whether they wanted me around or not, like they're gonna need their mom around a little bit more, right, in this next season of life. And that was a huge compelling reason for me to be able to be there when they're on their way out from school, and when they're back home from school, to hear about all the things, right, that don't seem important, but that are important in this particular season of life. So having that big why for my kids was also important for my husband to see and hear. But I spent 18 months building my business on the side before actually retiring from my other career. So I side hustled.
So you had a plan. Okay, that's
Absolutely.
great. I mean, I love that. I love that. And I think that probably is the way forward for a lot of people. I think some people say, well, no, I'm all in or all out, because they find excuses to not carry on, because it does. If you want something bad enough, the universe will test you before it gives it to you. So if you have this thing that I'm going to build a side business, it's going to make it difficult for you to build side business. You're going to really have to sacrifice your time and make sure that there's, after your job, there is time available to do the business, even though you have other commitments, your children and your family and so forth. But that test is important, because if you pass that test, then you are able to, as yourself, were able to build that business sufficiently enough to a level to where you're able to quit your job without having any adverse effect on your finances or your family.
Yes, absolutely. So that runway, what you said, about it being a test, like the universe will test you and poke it and make sure you're really serious about what you want to do, And I definitely felt that over that 18-month period. At one point when I was really kind of like, I'm ready to call it. I'm ready to write my notice. I'm ready to give a date. My husband's like, okay, if you're really ready, then let's not use any of your salaried income for the next 6 months. I was on a 6-month kind of window. And let's just use your coaching income, for your side of the income. And I was like, okay, so it was a very practical test for all of us to see what that looked like. And with that, we tucked away my salary for 6 months into a nice nest egg for the just in cases.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is you made a decision, you came up with a plan, and then you stuck to the plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now here's the question. When those tests came, and I'm sure they were there, how did you deal with those tests, and how did you work on your mindset? How did you keep yourself focused on your end game, on your end goal, rather than, focusing on the problems at hand?
It was trying. I emotionally, spiritually, physically, I felt tried in every single ways that several different periods of that 18-month period. But discipline, I think, is part of what that. I had a routine. I had an alarm that went off at 3:30 in the morning, 2 days of the week, at 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 days a week, and a very like restful 5 a.m., 1 day of the week. I got up early and I took some dedicated time to work before I went to work in order to focus on my business. And then I had one afternoon per weekend that I was also focused on seeing some clients, doing some work, and then one evening a week as well. So there was some sacrifice involved and some discipline and dedication to show up for myself.
Yeah.
Especially during those early morning hours.
That I was going to come to. So getting up, I mean, I'm an early riser anyway, but getting into the habit of rising at 3:30, I don't do 3:30, I do 5 a.m. But if you're doing 3:30 or 4 a.m., that takes a lot of dedication. That takes a lot of discipline. And how do you motivate yourself to do that continuously? Yes, it's okay for the first week or so when you're really highly motivated, but the motivation disappears after a week or so. And then it takes sheer willpower or discipline to continue forward. Once you break the cycle, once you get into, once you cross at least a month over, then it becomes more of a habit and it becomes easier. But that first month is a killer. How do you get past it? How do you continue, and how do you continue to show up for yourself, as you just said?
I think it comes back to that why. I really started to feel called and compelled to not be working in the same way that I was, and that in order to cross over right into something different, it was going to take time, dedication, and work, effort, sacrifice, really, on my part. So I could see the end game. I could see the forest through the trees, luckily. And I know that not everybody has that same like level of vision. But that passion, that fiery, like, and I knew it was there. I just had to keep showing up for it.
Okay. So what advice would you have for someone who's in a similar boat to yourself? They have young children, they have a partner who's either in employment or maybe an entrepreneur too, and this individual has been thinking about, moving into entrepreneurship, moving into something, and their reasons may be different. They may be because they're more passionate about their work, or they're bored with their current job, or they just feel the passion that they came into that profession, be accountant, lawyer, whatever it is no longer there. But they've been, giving themselves excuses. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. I'll do it next year. This year isn't right. So they know they've been giving themselves excuses. Every year is now, we're doing this recording in November, and it's coming to the end of the year, and another year's gone, and think, oh my God, where did this year go? I was supposed to start my side hustle or my passion project in January 2025, but I can't see it happening. Let me postpone it till the following year. What advice would you have for someone like that? And what kind of way do you think they can move forward, and how can they actually work on their mindset? I know you talk about why. How do they identify their why that's strong enough for them to be, for them to take the initial step and take the decision and stick to the decision?
I think it's hard to give somebody advice, I think, in this way. Like, if you've got that, you got to find your fiery passion, right? Whatever that looks like. Like you said, like, you just went out of your job, you want to spend more time, you want more freedom, you want options. I feel like options, for me, that tends to resonate with a lot of people. I want options. I want to be able to choose from A, B, C, or D. I don't just want to have to do A because I was told I have to do A, or it feels like the only thing available to me. You alluded to, you have to have a plan, so each morning, really kind of the week before, I knew what my week ahead was going to hold. Like, I knew what project I was going to work on a Tuesday morning. Right. I knew what project I was going to work on a Thursday morning. I knew what clients I was going to see on Sunday afternoon. So I had to show up for. It wasn't just to wake up at 3 a.m. for the hell of it. There was intention, and there was something expected of me, of myself, really, at the end of that morning, right, to make progress towards something. So having that plan was really important. And good communication, because of that early morning, like, I was going to bed by 9 p.m. hopefully, like, I needed to get my rest as well. So it was really had to be good communication with my family, my husband, my kids. Like, these are the days, right, that we can have like a family outing. These are the days that we can't, these are the days that I'm up for a date night. These are the days that I can't, so and my husband had to, pick up and share more of that load when it came to some of our family obligations. The housekeeper was in good use, like, there was lots of other things that I did not do so that I could focus on what needed to happen.
So what I'm hearing is, again, time and time again, is in order to make this work, you made a plan, and the plan was quite comprehensive in terms of what you're going to do, what's your exit strategy in terms of coming out of your job, and then the time that you're allocating to your side hustle or your passion project. That had a plan of how that time was going to be used, not just be turning up at 3 o'clock and thinking, what do I do now? There was attention behind it, and there was a plan behind it, so you could actually utilize that time correctly, because you're sacrificing your sleep and you're sacrificing your family time in order to get up at that time to do whatever that project you were meant to do. So planning is really, really important. Now, let me ask you this question. What if your plans are disrupted? So what kind of person are you? Are you able to adapt, or are you quite rigid with your plans? If someone here thinks, yeah, I don't like making plans because, plans always fall through, things always come up. What's your response to that?
Yeah, I think that there's grace and flex necessary to all plans. All the plans. It's not, I use the right analogy of wet cement, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you've ever been around wet cement, but when you pour wet cement, like, there's this period of time that it's totally, loose and flexible. And that is the time, right, that you just get to move your plan around and adjust it to where it really needs to be. So you have this intention, but then there's this wet cement moment. So all plans need to have some grace and some flexibility within it. I feel like plans fail when you're too rigid. That's when we fall off the wagon. You're like, oh, the plan didn't work out the first time, so I guess that plan is not for me. But when you give yourself some wiggle, right, some margin, some flex, that's when you can truly have a successful and sustainable plan when not all of the details are written out, step by step.
I like that. I agree with that. I think people go to one extreme or the other. They either have really like rigid plans and they don't allow themselves any flexibility, and if they fall off the plan, they're like, oh my God, I'm not, things are falling apart, and not have that flexibility to adapt. Or what's the point? I don't like planning. I find it too rigid or whatever. I think in order to have a smoother transition from one form of employment to another, so being employed and going into self-employment and having your own business, you need to have a plan. That's essential. As Jim Rohn said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you need to have a plan, but you need to have, as an entrepreneur, you need to go in with the hat of adaptability, because you're going to have challenges and you will need to change your plans. You need to adapt to situations. And at the same time, you need to have an understanding family. I think this is something that's really important. You've mentioned time and time again how your partner stood up and he upped his game, and he was able to be there for your children and your family, and your kids understood that point. I think this is really important, that if the family support has to be there. So let me ask you that question: how important is family support for you to do what you did?
I had more support emotionally from my mom, actually, during this period of time. My husband was really, so logistically, he was very supportive, in my trial, what that was kind of looking like. But he was skeptical, and nervous, about having two entrepreneurs, if this could truly work, and really like all of the stability that came from my salaried role. And it was my mom that was truly like this really great cheerleader for me. And, she could see that vision, right? She could see the forest through the trees. And when I was having, a dark moment, like, I don't know, Mom, there was a period of time that I had, after I first launched my business, that I had no clients for 6 months. I was like, and I really questioned everything. I was like, is this really what I'm supposed to do? Right. Until the first client came, and then the second, and then the third. And it was really like my mom that was just like, you need to hang in. Like, I see what you're doing. I know what you're doing. And her support probably is the reason that I did not give up in that first 6 months.
I love that. So on that note, we're going to wrap this up. What would be your parting comments to someone who's listening to this and who's also on the fence about starting their passion project?
I think get really clear around what your why is. Let it be clear for you. It doesn't have to be clear for anybody else. I'd love for you to have at least one other person in your corner. But it doesn't matter if your spouse isn't on board. Like you need to find somebody, and it's okay if it's not your direct partner in crime. I think that was it would have been a really big barrier had my mom not been in that picture. But find somebody else, right, that can be that person to help speak into you. And you really do need to have a plan. You need to have a game plan for how you're going to spend your time, because you will be making sacrifices, and you do not want to build up any guilt or resentment around what those sacrifices look like. So have a person, right? Make a plan, and then believe in yourself, right? And believe in that why.
Fabulous. So tell us, Sarah, how can we connect with you? How can you find you on the internet?
Yes, over on the internet. I love being on Instagram. I'm at Journey to Influence over there. And then my website is myjourneytoinfluence.com.
Wonderful. Now, if you're listening to us on a podcast, then the links to Sarah as just mentioned would be in the show notes. And if you're watching on YouTube, then down below in the description section, we'll have the links to Sarah too. Go check her out. Go check our website, connect with her, see how she can help you with your finances. Well, Sarah, we'll have to have you back on Money Talkies. It's an interesting conversation and we'd like to continue. But for now, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Gull.
And thank you for listening to me and Sarah today. I will be back on another Friday for you, just speaking to another amazing person, finding out how they change their life by changing their mindset. Until the next time we meet, this is Gull signing off. Take care and bye for now.